question. I think the first thing people need to realize is the impact of chronic itch. So we did a study recently about the overall quality of life of chronic itch patients compared to other systemic conditions. And it actually came out that having chronic itch can be just as severe or more severe than even having a stroke or chronic heart failure or type 2 diabetes. Very powerful. We also found that people who have sleep disturbance and itch have elevated blood levels of C-reactive protein levels that are at a higher and increased inflammatory risk profile of even things like heart attacks and other things like that. So understanding that itch is truly systemic and can make you at greater risk of all sorts of adverse things happening, and that many of our traditional immunosuppressants are actually very dangerous. This population oftentimes is a little bit older, have comorbidities, kidney disease, liver disease, other conditions like that. And it makes it very tricky to use a drug like cyclosporin that can really elevate your blood pressure, can damage your kidneys. It's very hard to use methotrexate, also can damage your kidneys. And liver involvement as well, anemias, a lot of these different factors in already a population that may have more disease comorbidities. So I think that from a variety of angles, the impact on quality of life and the efficacy of current therapies, but then also the safety in this population, and then the impact of what you can have in transforming lives is really the key here for managed care, that we need these drugs to get covered for so many different reasons. These patients are really suffering. I mean, sometimes we have to document a lot of different things in our notes. We have to document BSA, sometimes an EASI score, investigator global assessment. Patients have to fail certain therapies. So oftentimes for atopic dermatitis, someone's struggling greatly, has huge body surface area, but we have to fail a medium and high potency topical steroid and a non-steroidal therapy like tacrolimus ointment. And we have to wait at least 4 weeks. And that's 4 weeks of intense suffering for our patients, because that's just kind of what a lot of these payers are requiring. So that can be difficult. The step through therapy, the guidelines for that they've set forth. From a clinician standpoint, if somebody has itching throughout their body, why are we having to try, topical therapeutics, or why are we having to step through in some cases, methotrexate or phototherapy, therapies that obviously have, much less efficacy. So that I think is the frustrating angle of all this. Yeah. Great question. I think that itch has so many different phenotypes, inflammatory or non-inflammatory. So diseases that have development programs going on or approved drugs are relatively more straightforward, like atopic dermatitis, prurigo nodularis now with multiple therapies approved or in development. Even chronic spontaneous urticaria, bullous pemphigoid's about to have the first FDA-approved option. But there's a number of other itch disorders that don't have a formal FDA approval, but the patients are really struggling. Chief among them, chronic pruritus or itch of unknown origin, which we know many of these patients actually have raging type 2 inflammation, will respond great to some of these biologic therapies, which can't get them approved. So that's one of the big problems. Nomenclature. It is unbelievably impractical for there to be a need to cover every single indication with clinical trials for itch. There's so many different diseases that are covered that it's really impractical to have to do a clinical trial for every single itch indication. But that is the chief reason why we're having difficulty getting the right drugs covered for our patients that need them. So one element of this leadership is that we're trying to make a map of human itch subtypes and where there's similarities between conditions with approvals and non-approvals. So we're better trying to understand that. And recently in a patient who was erythrodermic, we got a patent on a blood test that helped us point to, with flow cytometry, which cytokines were upregulated. And so it's my belief that that is the future of inflammatory skin diseases and itch in general, is that we'll be able to phenotype them properly. And hopefully from a regulatory angle, we'll be able to conduct biomarker-based trials to be able to get patients what they need based on their phenotype, knowing that there's tremendous diversity and heterogeneity within a single disease, but also appreciating that across diseases, there really is a ton of similarities as well. So that's like the crux of the issue. Yeah.